Hi, this is Beth from Around the Table Yarns in Shaker Heights, Ohio. Tonight is Monday, April 7th, and we are starting our second sock of the year for 2025. This is the Sokid, Sokid sock from Lorilee Beltman, and it's a $5.50 pattern on Ravelry. We chose it because it has an interesting heel formation and an interesting welt at the top. The ribbing at the top is really kind of fun. So today I'm going to demonstrate the German twisted cast on using two needles. So this is a method that Elfrida has recommended to us, and I tried it for my first sock, and this is going to be my second sock. So I really like how it adds a little bit of extra. It's not adding extra elasticity, it's increasing the size of the stitches that I'm casting on, but it's giving me a little bit extra so that the top of my sock isn't so binding. So I'm going to show how to do the German twisted cast on with the extra needle, with two needles in place. And then we're going to go over the way that the ribbing, the welt pattern is done for your size. We're going to talk a little bit about choosing your size, and we can also talk a little bit about choosing your yarn. And then after that, that's all we're going to cover today. Making your sock is then on you to make your sock. Ren, my dog is doing some serious laundry over on the couch. Remy. Um, we embarrassed her. I feel terrible. Okay, so this is the top of my sock so far. We could do it this way. I'm doing it out of Skepja's Arcadia sock yarn in a multicolor pattern. That's my tail. And I really like how this is turning out. It's got a nice firm feel to it. I'm doing it magic loop style. And so you'll keep going until you get to where you want to start your heel turn. So we're going to start with this. And that's what we're covering for this first session. The next session, we're going to get into the heel turn of the sock. All right, so if there's no other questions, my dog can keep her mouth off of herself. Remy, I'm changing the video. All right, here's my ball of yarn all wound up. Isn't that pretty? It comes in multiple colors. I'm going to adjust the light in here a little bit. A little less glaring. Let's see if adding a white background helps. That might help even more. Okay, we'll try it with moving background. Find my pattern. This is my pattern. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is the German twisted cast on using the yarn that you've chosen. Put a light background behind it to keep it from being so glary on the camera. And the instructions for this are on pattern page 3. And let's just talk for a second about choosing your yarn. So I've chosen a yarn that is 75-25 wool and nylon. It is not a merino wool, it is a virgin wool. So it's a little bit tougher, a little bit stronger than merino wool. Merino wool can be very soft. That's a good thing, but it's also softness in your yarn means that it's a thinner fiber, and thinner fibers can wear faster. So for durability, it's sometimes fine to choose a yarn that isn't as soft as something you would want around your face. And so a virgin wool, something that's not a merino, is really okay if you want to have it be durable like a sock. Um, this pattern has a little bit, let me just show a picture of the pattern, picture of my of the finished sock. So you can see it's got this sort of castle appearance at the top, and then it has this triangular eyelet section and this interesting shape to the heel. So I'm really looking forward to getting to here, but you have about 4 or 5 inches or 2 or 3 inches, really depending on how long you like your socks to be, to work before we get to that. So my recommendation is to have 2 sets of needles and 2 balls of yarn and start the one. And if you get to here before May 5th, which is when our next sock club class is, then you can start the second one and get it to the same place. But that way you'll be closer to being done when we get to the end of our sock and you won't have second sock syndrome. So this is the sock that we're making. It also has an interesting shape on the toe, so I'm looking forward to doing that as well. So the cast on, the heel, and the toe are all just a little bit different this time around, and I think that will make for an interesting project. We are planning to meet this month, which is April, May 5th, and then there's another one in June on June. It's the first, it should be the first Monday in June, and it is June 2nd. It's the first Monday, the first weekday in June. Okay, so that's what we're doing. As you can see with this sort of pretty design, you don't need a lot of color differentiation to make it nice. Mine is going to be self-striping. Partly I wanted to try this yarn, but partly these are light clear colors. And I think that just like in this picture, the light clear colors, wherever they are, even if it's striping, you're still going to see the patterning really clearly. So go ahead and put that back, this here. And we've talked a lot about sizing socks in this class before, and you want a sock that feels snug on your feet. Many of us have gotten to a point where we are really comfortable with the needles that we use for our socks, and we use the same pair of needles or the same set of needles every time, and we generally cast on the same number of stitches. This pattern gives 3 choices for small, medium, and large, and they are based on numbers that are divisible by the number 8. And for sock knitters, these are very familiar numbers. It's 56, 64, and 72 stitches. So that's not a lot of size variation if you're trying to really tweak something. What you'll need to do is tweak either the thickness of your yarn, thinner or thicker, or the thickness or thinness of your knitting needle to get variations in size between small, medium, and large. I'm pretty comfortable casting on 64 stitches, so that's going to be the one that I'm going to follow. So I am following the pattern instructions for the size of medium for 64 stitches. So I want to just demonstrate the German twisted cast on for 64 stitches using 2 needles. And this is really just the same as using, let's see, I want the outside. I don't want the inside. So I'm going to wind this up and shove it back on the inside. I do want to match the cream color, but I wound this off from the ball in the same direction I'm knitting the other one, and that's from the outside. So I'm going to take my yarn from the outside, just briefly go to, so I would like 64 stitches on a fingering weight. There are different ways to figure this out. The first one is to take your yarn, wind off a little bit for a tail, put the tail in your hand, and then you're going to go. I wound off a little bit for the tail. I've got about 6 inches of tail, and then I'm going to go around all the way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is the distance of 10 stitches. And so you can just walk this down the yarn. So there's 20, 40, and then that long again is another 60. I'm just going to go one more to be on the safe side. A little extra never hurts when you're doing a cast on. So that gets me a length that's about 2 arm lengths long. And that would be actually, I'll go back to my camera for a second. So I just want to show you, this is where we measured off. And if I did this and this, I get right about, oh, my camera's following me, right about to the end of that tail. So my quick and dirty for about 30 stitches is to take the end and measure off 2 full arm lengths and then a little more, and you'll be roughly where you need to be. Okay. I hold my yarn in my left hand in this position. So if you were drawing a picture of my hand, it would be like I was making a gun with my hand, and I want one of the strands to go over the forefinger and one of the strands to go over the thumb. And then I hold the tail and the working yarn together in my other 2 fingers. It makes a triangle. So if I turn my hand, there's this space between my thumb and forefinger and the yarn itself. And with the needles held to the same place, the same length, I'm going to come from above and twist over to make the first stitch. Now, if you don't want to do that, you can make a slip knot and just put it on both needles. But you can also, if you don't want to have a knot there, if you just want to have a stitch there, you can go around and twist up, put your finger on it, keep those needles even. All right, now we're going to do the German twisted cast on. And the first thing is the needles face the thumb, and they're going to go from where they are pointing towards the top of the thumb. They're going to stay on the outside, point towards the bottom, and sweep under both of those strands, and then run down the thumb into that loop on the thumb. Then you come over the strand that's coming off of the pointer finger, and then you have to get back through the loop on your thumb. But as you can see, it's twisted right here. See right here, it's twisted. Now I could either try and come out this little tiny hole, or I could untwist my thumb and come straight through. Lifting up, let go with your thumb, and that makes the first stitch. So let's do that all again. That was fast. So the needles are pointing towards the tip of your thumb, and you sweep them around the 2 strands on the thumb, touch the top of the thumb and run them down into that. Touch the tip of your pointer and run it down to pick up that strand. And now bend your thumb towards the pointer to uncross and come down into the space on your thumb, the loop on your thumb. I put my pointer finger from my right hand on that stitch when I let go with my thumb, and then I pull on the working yarn with my left thumb to get that stitch set. You can pull tightly because you've got 2 needles in place. It will not tighten it up too much. So swirl around and down over the strand and through the loop. I lift up and pull down with my thumb. So that last motion is my thumb coming along that thread, that yarn, and then I'm back in position, around and down, over and through, around and down, over. Now you could kind of slide right through like that. That's another way to do that. around and down over. I like to think of going over the back, that back strand of the loop, and then underneath the front strand. That's another way. It's like you're walking on a twisty path, round and down, over and through, around and down, over and through. You're going to do that until you have 64 stitches on the needle. So I'm going to pick up my speed here a little bit. One of the things you'll notice as you're doing it, you can see this strand, let's let it get back into focus, is untwisting. You see that? So if you don't want it to lose its twist, you can let go of it and let it re-twist. And then keep going. It's sort of like when you're untwisting a telephone cord, and eventually you have to let it spin back around by letting go. We're going to keep doing that. And if I notice that my strands are untwisting, what happens if they untwist is they lose their strength. So when they're untwisted like that, they're not strong anymore, and you don't want them to be weak. So you want to make sure that they're twisted as you're doing it. So periodically go back and make sure that they're twisted adequately. So I've continued to cast on, and now I have 64 total, and I've counted to the middle. So that's my 32. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull one of these needles out. I don't know if I can do this and hold my stitch in place. So I'm going to take one of these needles and push it forward to separate the two needles. And the other one I'm going to pull out. So now I have these elongated stitches on my cable. This is where it's 32. I'm going to bend my cable there for magic loop. And I want to keep my stitches lined up. You can see they're kind of twizzled around. I want to keep my stitches all facing each other on the inside of my needles. And I need to, wow, I have a big tail left over, so that was plenty. I want to turn them around so that the tips are facing to my right now. If this were a rectangle, like the top of the rectangle, the sides of the rectangle, the bottom of the rectangle, I want my yarn, the stitches are all facing each other. I want my working yarn, that's my tail. I'm going to cut that tail so it's shorter. I want my working yarn in the upper right-hand corner. So there it is. And now we are going to read the chart or read the written out instructions for your cuff size. So if your cuff size is 56 or 64 or 72, you're going to refer to your pattern and you're going to look at rounds 1 and 2. And rounds 3 and 4, rounds 1 and 2 are the same. Rounds 3 and 4 are the same. And you're just going to repeat those rounds for however long you want to, or the pattern has you repeat them 4 times. 4 times, and then you do rounds 1 through 4 5 times, and then rounds 1 and 2 once more after that. So when you do that, it looks like this. This is what it's going to look like. So I'll just get that started to join it in the round. I've got my stitches facing each other. For the magic loop, I push the needle that I'm going to be knitting off of into the stitches. So the needle is situated in the stitch, and you can see how nice and even these stitches are, but they're very loose. So using the two needles to make our stitches around has created an edge that is much looser, but very even. And I'm going to follow my pattern. I start with a purl stitch. So I want to put my yarn underneath the needle so that it comes up from the bottom to purl. I want to pull firmly on that first stitch and then move the yarn between my needle tips to the back to knit. In every case, it starts with a purl 1 and then a knit 2, and then you purl. There's a different number for each of the sizes. You do a purl section, but now I'm joined in the round. And you do the chart repeat or the repeat on the written out section 2 times on each half. If you're doing double pointed needles, you might do each chart section 1 time per needle and have 4 needles. Two and purl 1 to finish off this half of the sock. So I've done 2 repeats of the written instructions. So I purled 1, knit 2, purled, knit 2, purl 1, and then I repeat it. Purl 1, knit 2, purl, 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 knit 2, purl 1. When I'm changing needles for magic loop, all I do is pull that needle around to the right, push in the needle that I've worked off of, so it's ready to be worked from again. And then again, you don't want to put your yarn up because you're going to purl the first stitch. If your yarn is up like that and you join, it will wrap around and create a new stitch. So you want your yarn to be below the needle when you start, or in front of the needle when you start, so that it's going from this stitch straight into this stitch without an extra wrap around the needle. And then you just repeat that same row. So that's how we're going to get started. Bloop. That's not a purl stitch. That's a knit stitch. That's a split stitch. There we go. So that's how we're getting started. All right. So that elongated stitch at the top allows, you can see that these are a little bit bigger, and that's from doing the extra wrap around. But when I pull on this, I get very little resistance. Often when I pull on the top of my sock, this top row just feels, the cast on row feels really binding, and it's hard to get it over my foot. And so I wanted to try something a little bit more elastic. And I just think that this helps give you a little bit more stretch at the top. So it's not as binding if you have a wide foot or a big arch. So that is the tricks for today. I've got about an inch of this one done. I'm going to probably take it down maybe 3 or 4 inches before I start the heel. The pattern gives you a measurement of 6 inches total. So about 4 inches. This is about 2 inches and then about 4 inches more. But if you like a shorter sock or a taller sock, it is okay if you want to make it a little bit shorter or a little bit longer. You should have enough unless you make it super long, in which case you might want to evaluate your yardage, how much yardage you have. You should have over 400 yards for this project. Any questions? Oh, you need to do that. I didn't mean to press that button. Okay, so we will be going on. Um, our next meeting is May 5th. On May 5th, we're going to do the heel. And I'll have one maybe at the beginning of the heel and one maybe halfway through the heel so that we have time to see the whole thing. Um, and then we'll be doing the toe on June 2nd. And I'm really enjoying this so far. It's kind of a fun looking sock. We saw a number of them get started in the group this morning. You're always welcome to join in the classroom if you're interested. It's at 10 o'clock on the Monday that we do the Zoom. If you're unable to because you don't live here or you work or whatever, we have the Zoom recording. I'll be posting this to our YouTube channel and um, you'll be able to watch it as many times as you want. If there aren't any questions, I'm going to go ahead and end the video for tonight, but thank you for joining us and we look forward to seeing you next time.